Hello, my name is Michael and this is my story. Since I was young, I always dedicated myself to studying with the goal of becoming a lawyer. At 28 years old, I achieved my dream of graduating from college and pursuing this career. However, I realized that throughout all this time, I focused so much on my studies that I never had time to have fun or travel, so it was time to enjoy life a bit. Where would my destination be? France. I always dreamed of experiencing the culture, cuisine, and beauty of the French landscapes. With that in mind, I spent months planning my trip. Until finally, the day arrived when I would fulfill my lifelong dream of visiting France.
On May 31st, 2009, I was leaving my house in Rio de Janeiro and heading to the airport, extremely excited to board Air France Flight 447, which would depart from Rio to Paris.
I knew this would be an amazing trip, as I had already planned to meet several friends I met on Facebook, all of whom were waiting for me in Paris. Some even took vacation time from work to enjoy the moment. As I settled into the plane, I felt my heart race with excitement and anticipation. I was ready for an unforgettable adventure. But as soon as the plane doors closed, I felt a chill down my spine. It was a strange sensation, as if something was out of place. But I ignored this feeling and tried to focus on the excitement of finally realizing my dream. Before takeoff, the flight attendants gave a complete presentation on safety measures, including instructions on how to fasten seat belts, use oxygen masks and life jackets in case of an emergency. I paid close attention to every detail as I had never traveled by plane before. Shortly thereafter, the pilot made an announcement to the passengers. He said, "Good evening, everyone. Today we are leaving Rio de Janeiro and heading to Paris. Our flight will last approximately 11 hours. Weather forecasts indicate a turbulent flight, so I ask that you follow all instructions provided by the flight attendants, especially during takeoff, to ensure the safety of all on board. I wish you a great flight and may God be with us." As soon as he finished speaking, I became apprehensive as it was my first flight, and I would have to face turbulence. But at that moment it did not affect me so much, as the people around me showed no fear and seemed used to it, so I thought it was something common. I had sat next to a young couple. The boy looked like he was 20 and the girl still looked 18, but they weren't very communicative. Judging by the boy's face, I think they had argued before boarding. So during the first few hours of the flight, I put on my headphones and watched a movie. After some time, the flight attendants started serving dinner, and I loved the food. I didn't expect it to be so good. They served a wonderful lasagna with orange juice. After the meal, I decided to take a nap, but it didn't take long for me to be abruptly awakened by the plane shaking violently. Looking out the window, I was hit by a frightening sight. A storm had formed around us. I was horrified. I didn't expect to go through such a terrifying situation. It was then that I felt another strong impact, followed by the lights going out, leaving only a few red stripes on the floor indicating the aisle between the airplane seats. At that moment, chaos broke out as some people who were standing, like those who had gone to the bathroom, began to scream and run to find their seats in a disorderly fashion. I knew something was very wrong, so I quickly adjusted my seatbelt and anxiously awaited the pilot's instructions. The situation was getting worse every second. Several airplane sensors began to beep, and the lights kept flashing all the time until the masks fell, and I started to get worried. Even with the difficulties, I tried to stay calm. I wanted to believe everything would be okay, but in the midst of the coming and going of the light, I saw the chaos. One of the passengers who was standing during the turbulence was unconscious on the floor while blood flowed from his head. A flight attendant was crying while trying to put on her seatbelt. Several children were crying, and several people had terrified expressions. In the midst of this, a 70-year-old woman had her hands clasped in prayer. Tears began to flow from my eyes without me realizing it until the pilot began sending messages. Some were lost due to system failures, but what could be heard was alarming. The pilot said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Good evening. We have just entered a zone of turbulence. Please keep your seatbelts fastened as we have entered a storm, and we have lost our speed measurement instruments. That is, we are without reliable indication. At the moment, we are at flight level 350, and for now, we are trying to manually regain control of the aircraft. After that, everyone checked their seatbelts, and some equipped themselves with their life jackets. Every passing minute seemed like an eternity, and I began to feel a terrible chill, as if something was sucking the life out of me. Fear deeply set in my heart, and I no longer knew if I would survive there. Again, the pilot began to speak, which would be his last words. Dear passengers, we have lost control of the plane, and the fall will be inevitable. We will try to regain control to minimize the impact of the aircraft on the water. I ask that everyone check their seatbelts and life jackets, and may God help us. It was with this message that all the passengers of Flight 447 departed. My condolences to family and friends. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the story. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.